Chapter 540. Ling Mohan saw that she was only wearing her underwear, and her collar was still loose. He could not help but look at her and said, "Didn't you say so? That you can't sleep well without me by your side?" He came to the table and sat down. His eyes swept across the room and could not help but fall on the spring scenery. "So, I came over." Seeing that his eyes kept glancing at her collar, Fengju looked down. She had just finished bathing and did not bind her chest. Her underwear was slightly loose, and her collar was faintly discernible. In fact, he could only see a patch of snow-white skin and nothing else. But that man's eyes, since he came in for a short while, had already glanced at her collar twice. Were all men like this? Would they unconsciously steal glances at the spring scenery? "Do I look good?" Her lips curved slightly as she asked with a smile.
Cough.
Ling Mohan coughed dryly and looked away uncomfortably, as if he had been caught peeking. "How about this?" She tugged at her loose inner garment, revealing a round, snowy shoulder. She even gave him a flirtatious look. Ling Mohan, who had looked away uncomfortably, could not help but look at her again. His eyes fell on her seductive shoulder, and his gaze was deep and burning. He asked in a hoarse voice, "Are you seducing me?" "Useless." She sneered and glanced at him in amusement. She pulled her underwear up. "How dare you come to my room in the middle of the night with such little willpower?" Hearing this, he adjusted his mind and glanced at her. "When it comes to you, I have no willpower. So, you'd better not try to seduce me. Otherwise, you can't blame me if anything happens. Have you dealt with those people?" She looked at him and poured him a glass of water. Ling Mohan took it and took a sip to suppress the fire in his heart. "Yes, they've all been dealt with." His expression was very calm, and his tone was very disapproving. Obviously, this was not the first time such a thing had happened, and he had long been accustomed to it. Tonight is the 15th, and it seems that they all like to pick the 15th to take action. She rested her chin on one hand and looked at him. "How much medicine do you have left? There shouldn't be any reaction after eating it, right? No matter how precious the fire attribute elixir is, it can't suppress the 1,000-year cold chi in my body. You must have used the blood of the ancient fire phoenix, right?" It was clearly a question, but the meaning behind his words was extremely certain. "Yes, smart." She smiled and rolled her eyes. Her tone was a little proud. "So, the matter of me stealing your 1,000-year-old ginseng and tricking you is enough to make up for it. You should know that my medicine is not easy to get." Hearing this, Ling Mohan could not help but laugh and said, "If you want anything in the future, just tell me directly. Will you give it to me just because I tell you?" She rolled her eyes and asked with a smile, "Yes, everything that is mine will be yours." He paused and looked deeply at her. "Even if it is me, it will also be yours." "Hee, forget it." She smiled sheepishly. Even if she was lustful, she didn't have the guts to pounce on him. When she thought of him being pressed on top of her, that image was too beautiful to imagine. Chapter 541. It's the middle of the night. It's time to sleep. He carried her and walked into the room, ignoring her low cries and struggles. He only put her on the bed when he reached it. Then, he took off his outer robe and tore off the beard on his face. He looked at the woman who was hugging the quilt and glaring at him and said, "You sleep inside. I'll sleep outside." You want to sleep here?" She widened her eyes. This man had said himself that he had no self-control when it came to her, but he still dared to squeeze in the same bed with her? This was the rhythm of wanting to ignite a fire with a touch of dry wood. "Yes." He nodded, and a smile flashed across his eyes. "No." She refused without thinking, like a little tiger occupying her territory. "Go back next door. In order to ensure your safety, I will stay in the same room and sleep in the same bed as you for the rest of the journey. Your refusal is invalid. You have to learn to adapt." He took off his outer robe and unbuttoned his inner robe. Fengju, who was occupying the entire bed, widened her eyes in shock. You, don't tell me that you have a habit of sleeping without clothes?" She swallowed her saliva unconsciously, and her eyes shone with a wolf's light. She had a look of rejection just a moment ago and was glaring at him angrily. But now she was swallowing her saliva and staring at him with a wolf's light in her eyes. Ling Mohan could not help but glance at her, and the corners of his lips curled up slightly. If that's what you want, I'll be happy to accompany you. If you do this, I won't be able to get married. Seeing him take off his boots and sit on the bed, she sighed helplessly. It doesn't matter, because you will only marry me in the end. His words were domineering, with a hint of a smile, but he did not lie down directly. Instead, he picked up the quilt and wrapped her into a ball, and then hugged her directly to sleep outside. He ignored the woman who was staring at him in shock, and just gently patted her head. Be good, go to sleep. How can I sleep when you wrap me up like this? She widened her eyes and looked at her hands and feet wrapped in the quilt, with only her head exposed. She was speechless. Could she sleep like this? Could she sleep like this? What did he mean by wrapping her up like this? Close your eyes and you'll fall asleep. He hugged the woman wrapped in the quilt, thinking that this way, he would not have any thoughts. You. Fangzhou opened her eyes, and just as she spoke, her acupoint was hit, and she fell asleep. You can sleep like this, go to sleep. When I have self-control, you won't be wrapped up like this. He murmured with a smile. He felt that he had to get used to her sleeping by his side for a few days. When that time came, he could just hug her to sleep. That way, he wouldn't have any random thoughts. As the night deepened, Ling Mohan, who was lying on the bed, hugged the unconscious woman who was wrapped in the quilt and fell into a deep sleep with satisfaction. Because of the joy in his heart, even when he was asleep, the corners of his lips were slightly curved into a faint smile of. Upon hearing this, Hui Lang came to a realization. Oh, so you're you. Medicine sage. He originally wanted to say, so you're the old man you that ninth young master spoke of. However, after thinking about it, the words that were about to come out of his mouth took a turn. That's me. Elder Yu did not know what he was thinking, nor did he know that Fangzhou was hopping mad because he missed out on benefits when he returned. At this moment, he still had a smile on his face as he said, I wonder if Xiao Ju, ninth young master. He seems to have slept rather late last night and hasn't woken up yet. Hui Lang said, no, please take a seat downstairs first. I'll report. Before he finished speaking, Ling Mohan, who was dressed in a black robe and had a big beard, walked out. He glanced at the few people outside the room, and his gaze fell on Elder Yu and the president. He asked in a deep voice, Why are you looking for her? You are? Chapter 543. Perhaps sensing Ling Mohan's extraordinary aura, the guild president said, We have something to discuss with him, but it's inconvenient to tell outsiders. Please help us pass on the message. Hearing this, Ling Mohan glanced at them and walked into the room next door. Without turning his head, he said to Lung Shuang, Go in and tell your master. Lung Shuang nodded and entered the room. When she came to the inner room, she saw her master who was rolled up with only his head exposed. Her eyes flashed and she called out in surprise, Master? Yes. Fangzhou answered lazily without opening her eyes. The guild president of the pharmacist guild and Elder Yu are here. When she said this, her master, who was still sleepy, jumped up from the bed and opened his eyes to look at her, giving her a fright. You said Elder Yu is here? Yes, and their guild president is here too. He said he has something to discuss with Master. Hearing this, Fengzhou's eyes turned and she smiled, saying, Help me take the blanket away. That guy rolled me up like this. I couldn't sleep well last night. Lung Shuang's eyes flashed with a smile. He helped her take the blanket away and helped her wash up and get dressed. A devilish and elegant young master appeared again. Fengzhou went downstairs. Seeing her appear, Elder Yu and the guild president also stood up. Haha, Xiaojiu, you're finally up. Elder Yu laughed as he looked at the young man who came down. Elder Yu, why are you here? Fengzhou asked and came in front of the two. Elder Yu smiled and said, I've booked a room in a restaurant not far away. How about we talk there? Okay. She smiled and went out with Lung Shuang and Lung Hua. On the second floor, Ling Mohan looked at her leaving with them. He retracted his gaze and called Hui Lang and Yingyi upstairs. Arriving at the side room of the restaurant, Elder Yu first helped to introduce the two of them. Then, He opened his mouth and said, "So after the guild master found out, he said that he wanted to personally pay you a visit and also wanted to persuade you again that you can be a guest elder in our guild." "That's right, ninth young master. I can raise your treatment to double that of a consecrated elder. I will also report this to the first-class eunuchs and second-class guilds. This way, no matter which country you go to, as long as you go there, you will be able to enjoy the highest treatment of a guest elder. However, if the guild needs your help in the future, I hope that you can help us." The guild president was afraid that he would not like the original treatment, so he said to raise his salary and register him into a first-class and second-class guild. He only hoped that this young man would accept such good treatment. "Is that so?" Fengjiu frowned. Her face was hesitant, but her heart was overjoyed. Yesterday, she was still complaining that Elder Yu did not speak properly and made her lose such a good opportunity. She did not expect them to come knocking on her door again today. Yes, such an opportunity was not bad. If she rejected it again, it would be unreasonable. Elder Yu and the guild president looked at each other. Their hearts were also in their mouths. They were afraid that he would reject again, so they said, "Xiaojiu, what do you think? If there's anything you're not satisfied with, you can tell us." Chapter 544. Hearing this, the two of them were overjoyed. They looked at each other and laughed. "Good, good, good. Then it's settled." The guildmaster directly took out a jade token representing the guest elder. "I even brought the guest elder's jade token. Just in time. Let's settle this matter and celebrate." Hearing this, Fengjiu couldn't help but laugh. Was he afraid that she would run away? The three of them finished a series of procedures, and the dishes were all served. Because of the guest elder, the three of them had a subtle change in their relationship. Well, to put it bluntly, there was some kind of involvement and they stood on the same side. Naturally, it would be different from before. The meal lasted until noon. When the three of them walked out of the restaurant, Elder Yu said that he wanted to send Fengjiu back, but was rejected. "No need. It's just in front. You can go back. I won't send you off." She smiled and said to the two of them, "That's good. We'll definitely have the chance to meet again in the future." The two of them said, then cupped their hands and left, happily heading back to the guild. When they were far away, Fengjiu tossed the jade token in her hand and said with a smile, "What's yours will still be yours, you can't run away." Leng Shuang and Long Hua, who were standing behind her, looked at each other and smiled. To them, as long as their master was happy, it was fine. Fengjiu looked at the bustling streets with people coming and going. Her eyes moved slightly. The scene last night, as if it didn't exist, returned to normal. This kind of method, this kind of handling, it was clear that Ling Mohan's background was not ordinary. A noble from a third-class country? Royalty? His identity was probably far more honorable than this. When she returned to the inn, she didn't see Ling Mohan. Only Hui Lang was waiting for them in the inn. Even Ning Yi was nowhere to be seen. "Where's your master? Went out?" She was a little surprised. That guy actually went out? Master went out to do something and may come back late. He asked ninth young master not to wait for him and to eat and drink as usual. Hui Lang grinned and conveyed his master's words. Uft, who would wait for him? She walked up the stairs and waved at Grey Wolf when she reached the second floor. Hui Lang was surprised, but he still walked up and followed him into the room. "Ninth young master, what's the matter? Look." She happily tossed the jade tablet in her hand and smiled slyly. "A guest elder has come to your door again, and there are even more benefits. You've earned it, haven't you?" Hee, my master already knew. He said that the ninth young master would definitely not return empty-handed. Hearing this, she suddenly felt that it was meaningless. Your master is a god. Just pinch his fingers and you'll know. I originally wanted to wait for him to come back and give him a surprise. As she said this, she waved her hand. You can leave. I'm going to cultivate for a while. Don't let anyone disturb me. Okay. Hui Lang now obeyed her words because his master had told him that she would be his woman, which meant that she would be his wife. Naturally, he couldn't be disrespectful. After the door was closed, she glanced at the cloud-swallowing beast lying in the corner of the room, and then flashed into the space. When Ling Mohan came back at night and learned that she had become a guest elder, he just smiled. This matter was certain. The Pharmacist Guild wouldn't miss such a good opportunity to win her over. And that night, Fangzhou guarded against him and closed the doors and windows early, so he could only go back to sleep next door. If a woman fell in love with a married man, and she had that kind of family background and power, she wouldn't have to wait for so many years. But she didn't. Instead, she chose not to destroy the family of the person she loved. Instead, she silently protected and waited for decades. Her love was not to possess, but to protect. This kind of love was very moving. According to the latest news, there seems to be an old man with a wine gourd hanging from his waist in the Lin family. It is said that Sushi sent people to kidnap him after she came out of seclusion. This method is really bold. However, the handsome man from decades ago has now become an old man. I'm afraid it will be very difficult for the two of them to be together. Chapter 546. Fangzhou couldn't help but laugh when she heard this. She couldn't help but laugh when she thought of her grandfather being forced to marry a woman who looked to be in her 20s. Even if she didn't see it with her own eyes, it must be very interesting. Thank you, President Ko. I understand, she said with a smile. This was good news for them who had been worried about their grandfather. President Ko stood up and clasped his hands. Then I won't stay any longer. Ninth young master, goodbye. If we meet again in the future, I will be a good host. Fangzhou stood up to send him off. At the same time, she took out a bottle of medicine and handed it to him. This is a bottle of medicine that I made in the past 2 days. Consider it a little gift from me. Although it can't cure your old injury completely, it can ease it. President Ku was overjoyed when he heard this. He thanked her again and again before leaving. In the room, Ling Mohan watched her walk in and asked, "When are you leaving?" "Of course, the sooner the better. I want to see Aunt Sushi now." She narrowed her eyes and said with a smile. Such a woman was indeed rare in the world. How could her grandfather miss out on such a chance? Seeing her expression, Ling Mohan smiled and said, "In this world, there is only the face restoration pill, but there is no pill or medicine that can make people look younger. Your grandfather and Sushi want to be together. Just like what President Ku said, it will be very difficult. If it was someone else, as long as he had the ability, he would choose a beautiful woman to marry. Even a yuanying old man who was hundreds of years old could take a woman in her teens to warm his bed. The difference in age was not a problem at all. However, it was very difficult for someone like her grandfather. A woman did that for him. If he was young, it would be fine. But now, he was in his twilight years. How could he accept his old face appearing in front of the person he loved every day? This world is so strange. Whether it is pills or medicine, there are endless changes. How do you know that there won't be a pill that can make people look younger in this world? She raised her eyebrows and looked at him with confidence. The art of medicine is mysterious and changeable. As long as I study it carefully, I believe that it won't be a problem to develop such a pill. Moreover, since there is no such pill in this world, then if I develop it, my name as the Ghost Doctor will really be famous in the world. Looking at her raised eyebrows and exuberant expression, he couldn't help but smile. Yes, others don't know. But if it's you, I believe it can be done. As soon as he finished speaking, he took a sip of his tea. Hearing this, Fangzhou glanced at him. Don't give me that. We have to sleep separately. If you dare to sneak into my room in the middle of the night, humph, I'll make you impotent any minute. Cough, cough. Before he could swallow his tea, he choked because of her words. He coughed twice and put down the teacup. His expression was slightly angry as he glanced at her. This woman, in front of 4 subordinates, she really dared to say anything. Hui Lang and Ying Yi, who were standing to the side, couldn't help but lower their heads and laugh. Lung Shuang's expression was still cold, but a smile flashed through his eyes. Only Long Hua revealed a carefree smile, not bothering to hide the smile on his face. Fangzhou raised his eyebrows at him and chuckled. Don't think I'm joking. I'm serious. If you want to have a taste of what Hui Lang was like back then, you can give it a try. Chapter 547. Erectile dysfunction was definitely a nightmare for him. He absolutely did not want to recall the time when he was pricked by the Ghost Doctor, and sent to the brothel by his master. If the ghost doctor had not mentioned it, he would have really forgotten about it. Long Shuang, Long Hua, pack up. We're getting ready to leave. She chuckled and turned to leave the room to wait for them downstairs.
Yes.
The two of them responded and packed up some things in the room. Ling Mohan stood up and followed them downstairs. Ying Yi followed behind him. Hui Lang went back to the room next door to pack up some of his belongings before gathering downstairs. Little Tun Yun ran downstairs while Lao Bai was let out. The group of people left as soon as they said they would. They boarded the airship and left for Sanjiang City after exiting the city gates at the same time. In the Lin residence, Old Master Feng was still wearing his inconspicuous gray robe with a wine gourd hanging from his waist. He was walking around the Lin residence with his hands behind his back. He walked hurriedly and occasionally glanced back at the people 3 meters behind him before he quickened his pace. However, the moment he quickened his pace, the people behind him also quickened their pace. In short, they maintained a distance of 3 meters and did not get further away. When the people in the residence saw this, they only pursed their lips and smiled. Some of them bowed and then went about their own business. Such a scene appeared in the residence every day for the past few days. The one walking in front was the Old Master Feng, and the one following behind was definitely their Lin residence's Aunt Su Shi. A lot of people didn't understand why their beautiful aunt would fall for such an old man. Although it was strange, no one dared to ask. No one dared to be disrespectful to the Old Master Feng because not only had Aunt Su Shi warned them, even the family head had said that he was his sworn brother. Whoever dared to be disrespectful would be expelled from the residence. When they arrived at a pavilion, the helpless Old Master Feng stopped and looked back. He said, "Su Shi, don't follow me anymore. Let me go. You kidnapped me and brought me here. It's fine if I can't see my son, but I can't even see my precious granddaughter. What's the meaning of this? Big brother Sanyuan, if you agree to my request, I won't keep you here. As long as you agree, let alone returning to the Phoenix dynasty, I'll even go deep into the mountains with you," she said softly as she looked at him with a burning gaze. "Su Shi, I say, why are you so stubborn? We're really not suitable." Grandpa Feng was really helpless. No matter what he said, she wouldn't listen. What he didn't expect was that everyone in the Lin Manor, regardless of whether it was the elders or the younger generation, would let her do whatever she wanted. They all tacitly agreed. What else could he do? Su Shi faintly looked at him, her eyes filled with unconcealable pain. In the past, it wasn't possible, and it really wasn't suitable because you had a wife. But now, your wife has passed away for many years, your son has become the ruler of a country, and your granddaughter is already so old. What is there that isn't suitable? I've waited for you for so many years. Do you want me to wait forever? But the problem isn't that. When he met her gaze, he became listless. Even his voice became softer. She moved and appeared in front of him. Her young and plump body blocked his way. Step by step, she said, "Isn't it just that I'm too young and beautiful? Others can't even hope for their own woman to be so young and beautiful. You're using this as an excuse to push me away." Chapter 548. Su Shi looked at him with her beautiful eyes and hurriedly bent down to help him up. "Look at you. Am I that scary?" Don't. I can do it myself." Old Master Feng waved his hands and moved back in fear. He didn't even dare to look at her. Seeing this, Su Shi bit her lips. She was a little angry and sad. She looked at him with red eyes, covered her face with her sleeves, and quickly ran away. Sigh. Old Master Feng sighed helplessly. There was an indescribable feeling in his heart. He didn't get up and just sat on the ground with his legs crossed. He took the wine gourd from his waist and drank a mouthful of wine. After a long time, he stood up, patted his dusty robes, and walked out with his hands behind his back. In the shadows, 2 shadow guards followed him. It wasn't that they wanted to follow, but that the head of the family ordered them not to let him escape. Walking out of the Lin family's gate, Old Master Feng took a deep breath, tidied his robes, and walked out onto the street. He was just an old man in a gray robe. The only thing special about him was the wine gourd at his waist. Walking on the street like this, he naturally wouldn't attract the attention of others. He walked around outside and looked at the bustling street with people coming and going. He didn't go to places like restaurants and inns. Instead, he found a random corner and sat cross-legged on the street, drinking wine. No one knew what he was thinking. Perhaps it was because he looked no different from an old beggar, but someone actually threw a silver coin at him. The sound of the coin breaking old Master Feng's train of thought. He came back to his senses and picked up the silver coin. He was slightly startled and had a strange expression. The two shadow guards in the shadows couldn't help but twitch their mouths. This was because old Master Feng had been in their Lin family for some time. The head of the family had ordered the shadow guards to inquire about the Phoenix dynasty. Thus, they knew that this old man was the father of the Phoenix dynasty's emperor. But he didn't expect that he didn't put on any airs at all. After walking around the street a few times, he actually found a corner to sit down cross-legged and drink. Someone actually threw a silver coin to him. Did they think he was a beggar? Seeing that the sky was darkening, he had no intention of going back. The two secret guards whispered to each other, and one of them went into the mansion. Su Shi, who was wearing a simple and elegant dress, followed the shadow guard. From afar, she could see the figure sitting on the corner in a daze. She didn't know what he was thinking about, but his expression was lifeless. His brows were slightly furrowed, and there was a trace of worry on his face. Seeing him like this, she suddenly felt her heart ache and her heart ached. She couldn't help but ask herself softly, should she not force him like this? She was about to walk over, but when she saw him sitting there in a daze, she stopped. She stood quietly at the corner of the street, looking at him quietly and accompanying him. The two shadow guards in the shadows saw this and couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. They looked at the old man sitting on the corner of the street, then looked at Aunt Su Shi standing on the other side of the street. The two of them were also speechless. Only when the sky was completely dark did old Master Feng slowly get up. With his hands behind his back, he walked towards the Lin family. On the other side of the street, Su Shi didn't appear. She only watched from afar and quietly followed. Only when he entered the Lin family's gate and walked towards the courtyard did she order the servants in the mansion to prepare some food for him. Chapter 549. And Su Shi responded and smiled at him. Then, she walked inside. Seeing her walk inside, he pondered for a moment. He called out to the shadow guard and found out that she went out to find old Master Feng. The two of them came back one after the other. Tell the kitchen to cook 2 more dishes to go with wine. Also, bring out my precious bottle of spirit wine. I want to drink a few cups with Uncle Feng. He smiled and signaled for the guard to go to his courtyard to get the wine. Not long after, the guard came back with the wine. He walked towards old Master Feng's courtyard with the wine in his hand. At this time, old Master Feng was sitting in the courtyard and drinking wine. He looked at the moon above his head and thought, I was kidnapped. How worried must Feng girl be? Although the matters there had been taken care of, his sworn brother's people shouldn't have told Feng Xiao and Feng girl that he was here. AI, Uncle Feng, why are you sighing? A middle-aged man walked in and smiled at old Master Feng sitting in the courtyard. Oh, it's Chengji. Why are you here? Old Master Feng saw that it was his sworn brother's eldest son and said, Sit. I heard from the gatekeeper that you just came back, so I wanted to come and drink a few cups with you. Look, I know you like wine, so I even brought my precious spirit wine. He laughed and sat down at the table with the wine jug. Hearing that there was good wine, old Master Feng became more spirited. You have it in your collection? Last time, your father also brought me a jug. TSK, that wine was so fragrant that I still drool when I think about it. There really is a lot of good wine here. Mine is not worse than my father's. If you don't believe me, try it. He took a cup and poured half a cup. Seeing that it was only half a cup, old Master Feng narrowed his eyes. You brat, you're even stingier than your father. How can you taste such a small cup? Hearing this, Lin Qingji couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. Ha ha, Uncle Feng, you haven't eaten yet, right? It's not good to drink wine on an empty stomach. Try a small sip first. I had people prepare a few dishes to go with the wine. They'll be here soon. As he spoke, he saw a few maids come in with things. It wasn't the dishes he ordered, but the dinner that Su Shi had the kitchen prepare. Annie asked the kitchen to prepare this. a maid said with a smile on her face as she retreated. In the Lin manor, everyone called Su Shi Aunt. Haha, Uncle Feng, you should eat first. Don't eat too much, or you won't be able to drink much later. Just you wait, tonight. This old man will drink with you until we're drunk. Old Master Feng laughed loudly. He ate a bit first. Seeing that the dishes had been delivered, he had people take the dishes away and began to drink with Lin Chengji. The old man had left home for a while and was worried about something. In addition, he was entangled with Su Shi in the Lin manor. This kind of messy relationship made him very vexed. Tonight, when they drank, they let go of the wine. From the first small cup to the end, they drank until late at night. Chapter 550. When Su Shi, who was hiding in the shadows, heard this, her heart couldn't help but jump. She nervously looked at the drunk man with a red face. What? Old Master Feng was drunk and didn't hear what he said. Seeing this, a smile flashed across his eyes and he continued to ask, Uncle Feng, do you have my aunt in your heart? Your aunt? Old Master Feng hiccuped. His eyes were half closed, and he supported his head with one hand. He swayed as if he was going to fall at any moment. On my aunt, Su Shi. Su Shi is a silly girl. Why do you think she fell in love with an old man like me? I'm just an old man. I don't deserve her. He waved his hand as he spoke. But you should know that my aunt doesn't care. But I care. He seemed to suddenly become angry. He heavily slammed the wine bowl in his hand on the table, causing half of the wine to spill out. He then said, So what if I have her in my heart? If I love her, I should give her the best. I can't give her that, so I pushed her away again and again. But that silly girl threw herself at me again and again. She was hurt by me again and again. Tell me, is she stupid? Is she stupid? I want to escape. This old man wanted to escape this afternoon. He suddenly spoke in a heavy tone and slammed the wine bowl on the table again. The next moment, he frowned and said with a troubled expression, But I thought, if I escape, she will really wait for me. Then I will have committed a great sin. I thought about it all afternoon and couldn't think of a way. Tell me, what should I do? He picked up the wine bowl and was about to drink when he realized that the wine in the bowl had spilled. He loudly shouted, Pour the wine. Lin Qingji was startled by him and looked at him strangely. He quickly poured more wine for him. Then just marry her. This isn't an unsolvable problem. My aunt likes you and won't care if you're older than her. He also drank some wine and slowly calmed down. No, my old scalp is wrinkling. How can I harm Su Shi? No. Pooh. Cough. Hearing his words, Lin Qingji choked on his wine and stared blankly. He felt that Uncle Feng's way of thinking and speaking were simply too unpredictable. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How could she say something like that? Come, Uncle Feng, drink some more. He couldn't help but smile as he poured more wine for him. However, after drinking 2 more bowls of wine, Master Feng finally couldn't take it anymore and collapsed. His entire body lay on the table as he muttered, No. Uncle Feng? Lin Qingji called out to him twice. Seeing that he didn't respond, he looked into the darkness and said with a smile, Auntie, Uncle Feng is drunk. Su Shi walked out from the shadows and lightly walked to the table. She looked at the drunk old Master Feng and asked, Why did you think of drinking with him? Auntie, I've known Uncle Feng since he came here a few decades ago. Recently, I haven't had time to catch up with him. Tonight, I just happened to have time, so I brought some wine to drink and chat with Uncle Feng. Chapter 551. Hearing this, Su Shi glanced at him and then at the unconscious old Master Feng. Her heart skipped a beat. Aunt, it's late. I'll go back first. Lin Qingji bowed and left with a smile. Su Shi looked at the person lying on the table and paused for a moment. She went forward and called out, Brother Sanyuan? En? Su Shi? Old Master Feng called out unconsciously. Although his eyes were half open, he was so drunk that he couldn't tell what was going on. Su Shi revealed a gentle smile. It's me. You're drunk. Let me help you in. As she spoke, she helped him up and walked towards the room. The shadow guards in the dark watched the two enter the room and were stunned. Their Aunt Sushi wouldn't really want to do that, right? Sure enough, this matter really needed their master's help. Seeing their master bring a jar of wine over, this matter was directly settled. In the room, Sushi first helped him wash up and change into clean clothes. She helped him lie down on the bed and looked at the person lying on the bed. Her eyes were filled with hesitation. She didn't dislike him for being old. She was just afraid that if she really did that, would he blame her when he woke up tomorrow? She struggled in her heart and thought of what he said to Chengji tonight. Just as Chengji said, he didn't dare to take that step. Since that was the case, why not let her take this step? In any case, in this life, she had already decided on him. After making up her mind, she felt nervous, shy, and uneasy. She stood by the bed for a while and remembered that there were still shadow guards in the courtyard. Thus, she walked out and glanced at the shadows. All of you, leave and guard outside the courtyard. Don't let anyone disturb us. Yes, the shadow guards' eyes lit up. They were very happy with this answer. With a leap, they went to guard outside the courtyard. Sushi glanced outside and closed the door again. She turned around and walked back to the bed. She looked at the person on the bed and lowered her head shyly. She raised her hand and slowly unbuttoned her clothes. In another courtyard, Lin Chengji, who reeked of alcohol, returned to his courtyard with a smile on his face. Before he entered his room, he saw his wife open the door and welcome him. "Husband, I heard that you went to drink with Uncle Feng." The first madam came to his side and smelled the smell of alcohol on his body. Seeing his smiling face, she couldn't help but be slightly surprised and asked with a smile, "Husband, you seem to be very happy. Did you have a good chat with Uncle Feng?" "Haha, Uncle Feng still likes to drink as much as before." He shook his head and smiled. He wrapped his arm around her waist and led her into the room. "I was really happy tonight. Well, compared to tonight, I'm more curious about what will happen tomorrow morning." Speaking of this, he laughed again, which surprised his wife. While asking someone to bring in water for him to wash up, she asked, "What's the matter tomorrow morning? Looking at you, could it be that something good has happened?" After going out for a while, he became so secretive. Chapter 552. Hearing this, First Madam was stunned. She asked in astonishment, You didn't get Uncle Feng drunk, did you? Auntie was here too?" Father and Auntie kept saying not to force Uncle Feng and to give him some time. But in my opinion, Uncle Feng didn't dare to take that step, and Auntie only wanted him. Since that's the case, I added fuel to the fire and helped Auntie. Speaking of this, he smiled and said, "I don't know if Father will give me a beating when he finds out tomorrow. Forget it. I'm exhausted from getting Uncle Feng drunk tonight. I'll rest first. Remember to wake me up tomorrow morning." As he spoke, he walked into the bedroom, leaving First Madam, who was a little dumbfounded, standing there in a daze. That night seemed to be tranquil and impermanent, but something was destined to happen and change that night. When the first rays of the morning sun shone through the window and scattered on the floor, two figures could be vaguely seen sleeping together behind the gauze bed. Old Master Feng, who was sleeping soundly, felt very comfortable, especially the dream he had last night. It was so wonderful that he didn't want to wake up. His hand moved slightly and touched smooth skin. He even felt as if there was a naked body pressed against his. Their body temperature blended together intimately, and it was unusually warm and comfortable. He couldn't bear to move his hand away and touched it again. But when he faintly heard a soft moan, his entire body froze. He was so shocked that he suddenly opened his eyes. This time, he was so shocked that his face turned pale. He directly grabbed the blanket and jumped up. He tripped over the blanket and fell off the bed. Hiss! He fell to the ground. His naked body was still tightly hugging the blanket. His face was full of shock and disbelief. He stared at the woman on the bed who had been awakened by him. When he saw the woman on the bed also sitting up naked, his old face turned from white to red. Because he had pulled the blanket down, she didn't have anything to cover her body. Sushi. His mind was blank. At this time, he didn't know what to say. especially when he saw Sushi on the bed. After recovering from her shock, she raised her hand to lift the gauze curtain. That originally faintly discernible young and exquisite figure was revealed in front of him. That slender waist, snow-white skin covered in red marks, and full breasts that were provocative and alluring. He only felt a wave of fire rush up. His nose heated up and something seemed to flow down. Seeing him staring straight at her and even having a nosebleed, she couldn't help but be startled. Looking down, she discovered that she wasn't wearing a single piece of clothing. Immediately, her beautiful face flushed red with shyness. She quickly put down the gauze in her hands and took out a set of clothes from her space to put on. Bang! Master Feng, who had been rolling on the ground, hugged the blanket and sat on the ground. However, when he saw the erotic scene, the memories of the previous night came rushing back like a flood. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Only one sentence appeared in his mind. It's over. I can't keep my integrity anymore. Sushi, who had just finished putting on her clothes, came out and saw him fall down. She was so scared that she quickly got off the bed to help him up. Brother Sanyuan, are you okay? She pinched his philtrum to help him regain his senses. Chapter 553. Sushi looked at the person hiding under the blankets and rolling away. For a moment, she was startled. She thought that he would be furious when he woke up, but who knew that he would hide under the blankets and roll away? He was even more embarrassed than her, who had lost her virginity. Looking at the person hiding under the blankets, her thoughts moved. Thinking of his ostrich mentality, since things had already reached this point, if she didn't add more fuel to the fire, he would probably shrink back again. Thus, she held back the smile on her face and didn't call out to him. She just quietly sat by the bed and watched. Old Master Feng, who was hiding under the blankets, was so embarrassed that he wanted to find a hole to hide in. He actually took Sushi, thinking of the red marks on her body when she was completely naked and the spring scenery that he had thought was a beautiful dream. He felt his nose begin to bleed again. He had cultivated his heart for so many years. Ever since his wife passed away, he hadn't touched another woman. Now, he couldn't protect his integrity. If his son or phone girl knew about this, his old face would die from embarrassment. But he had slept with her. No matter what, he had to give an explanation, right? Thinking of this, his heart couldn't help but beat wildly. He felt as if he had returned to his youth. When this feeling appeared, it immediately made him feel ashamed. What should he do? Why was it so quiet? Did he not hear her voice? His heart was filled with doubt and uneasiness. He carefully pulled open the blankets and poked his head out. He looked towards the bed and saw her sitting there with red eyes. She lifted her sleeves and gently sobbed. Seeing this, his heart suddenly tightened. He lacked confidence and timidly called out, Sushi? Sushi put down her sleeves and looked at him with reddened eyes. She gently bit her lips and faintly looked at him. Brother Sanyuan, I gave you my pure and innocent female body. Do you want to deny it? If you really don't want to marry me, then I'll go tell Big Brother right now and have him send you back. I won't bother you anymore. Saying this, she got up and walked out. No, Sushi, don't misunderstand. He quickly grabbed her with one hand and hugged the blanket with the other as he stood up. Looking at her red eyes, he sighed in his heart and honestly said, I didn't mean that. Nothing? You never thought of marrying me, did you? I know you don't have me in your heart, so you let me wait for you. I waited for you for decades, but you didn't move. Since that's the case, I'll let Big Brother send you back now, so you don't have to keep thinking about your son and granddaughter. No. I have you in my heart. It's just that old Master Feng was so anxious that he didn't know what to say. He didn't expect things to turn out like this. As expected, drinking was a bad thing. If he wasn't drunk, things wouldn't have gotten out of hand. Why are you guarding this courtyard? Is Sanyuan awake? Old Master Feng, who was holding the quilt with one hand, heard his sworn brother's voice outside. He was so scared that his face turned pale and his voice trembled. Oh no. Big brother is here. Why is he here so early in the morning? He said in a low voice. Since things had already happened, there had to be a solution. Thus, he lowered his head in shame. I'll listen to Big Brother on this matter. I'll do whatever Big Brother says. Chapter 555. Old Master Feng lowered his head and didn't say anything. He understood what Lin Buang was saying, but it was a bit difficult to do. Moreover, these were two completely different things. If a cultivator cares too much about what others think of him, he won't be able to go far on this path. Sanyuan, do you know why everyone in my residence is in favor of your marriage with Sushi? It's because they all understand this. As long as your cultivation is outstanding, as long as two people love each other, appearance and age aren't obstacles for two people who love each other. We bystanders can see clearly and understand. You, as the person involved, are lost in it. You really make me disappointed. Lin Buang shook his head and sighed. He looked at Lin Buang, who wanted to say something but didn't. Lin Buang continued, if there were people in my family who didn't support it, it would be one thing, but everyone in my Lin family supports it. What do you have to worry about? You've lived for dozens of years. How can you not understand this? Big brother. Old Master Feng choked up. He was indescribably moved. He knew that Lin Buang was doing this for his own good. He was enlightening him. He knew that Lin Buang was always thinking for his own good. Lin Buang stood up and walked to his side. He patted his shoulder and said, this matter is settled. Big brother will send someone to check the dates and help the two of you settle this matter as soon as possible. Big brother. No. He shook his head and said, what? No? Lin Buang heard this and immediately became angry. He glared at Lin Buang. Even Su Shi, who was hiding outside with Lin Chengji and eavesdropping, became angry when she heard this. She thought that Lin Buang was going to refuse again. She was about to go in when Lin Chengji pressed on her shoulder and gestured for her to calm down and continue listening. Old Master Feng quickly waved his hand and said, no, big brother, don't misunderstand. It's not that I don't want to marry Su Shi. It's just that Su Shi has waited for me for so many years. I want to return to the Phoenix dynasty and let Feng Shao prepare. I want to marry Su Shi grandly and give her a grand wedding. Otherwise, I'll be letting her down for all these years. Perhaps he had been enlightened by his words, but he no longer cared about the difference in their appearances. At this moment, he had decided in his heart that he would work hard in his cultivation and reach the rank of a martial honor as soon as possible. Once he returned to the Phoenix dynasty, he would ask the phone girl to quickly refine some medicine for him to advance his rank. Hearing this, Lin Buang smiled and patted him on the shoulder. Good. Big brother is very happy that you have this idea. Outside, Su Shi, who was eavesdropping, couldn't help but smile when she heard the conversation inside. He finally agreed. Lin Xingji pulled his aunt outside and joked, Aunt, it's still my idea, right? Uncle Feng will become your uncle. When the time comes, Aunt can't forget your nephew, the great matchmaker. Don't worry, I won't forget you. She laughed softly and said a few words to him before leaving first. At this moment, outside Three River City, a luxurious spaceship landed. After the spaceship was put away, Fangjiu and the others held Lao Bai's hand and walked into the city. Looking at the Three River City in front of her, she smiled happily and said, Do you think grandfather will be very surprised when he sees me? Chapter 556. Hearing this, Fangjiu was puzzled and asked, Shock? What do you mean? After not seeing her for so long, he should be surprised to see her here. Hee, you'll know whether it's a surprise or a shock when you see him. Huilang chuckled. An old man was entangled by a beauty who looked like she was in her 20s. If his granddaughter came to find him, he would definitely be shocked. Hearing this, she raised her eyebrows. Would he really be shocked by her? It shouldn't be, right? Should we find a place to stay, or go to the Lin family first? Ling Mohan asked and looked at her. On the spaceship, he had already torn off his beard. revealing his original appearance. She thought for a moment and said, "You guys find a place to stay first. As for grandfather, I'll secretly go and take a look." "You'll go alone?" He raised his eyebrows. "It's not easy to enter the Lin family. Then we'll go directly? Catch grandfather off guard?" Her eyes were filled with a sly smile. She suddenly felt that she should give grandfather a surprise. Well, maybe it was really as Hui Lang said, a shock. "We have many people. Let's find an inn first. If you want to take a look, I'll take you there later," Ling Mohan said and led her forward. He felt that they should find a place to stay first. "Okay," she responded and called out, "Hui Lang, find out where the Lin family is." "Okay," Hui Lang responded with a smile. The group found an inn and booked the entire second floor. Hui Lang went to find out where the Lin family was. In less than half an hour, Hui Lang came back and said to Fangjiu, who was sitting by the window on the second floor with his master, "Ninth young master, the Lin family is less than half an hour away. After a few turns, you'll reach it. The Lin family is an aristocratic family here. You can find out where it is by asking around." "Oh, it's not far." She nodded and gestured for him to rest at another table. Ling Mohan picked up some food for her and said, "Eat something. I'll accompany you for a walk later." "Okay." She smiled and nodded. Looking at him sitting opposite her, she asked with a smile, "Since you tore off your beard, should I call you Yama Lord? Or should I call you Uncle?" Hearing this, his deep black eyes fell on her smiling face and paused for a breath. He put down the chopsticks in his hand and looked at her. With a move of his finger, a soundproof barrier enveloped the two of them. It was also at this moment that his deep and magnetic voice unhurriedly came out of his mouth. "My surname is Xianyuan. First name, remember, don't forget." Xianyuan Mose, she was greatly shocked. Xianyuan was a surname of D. It was the most noble surname of the imperial family. Was he really from the imperial family? No wonder. No wonder there were always people trying to kill him, and the assassins they sent were so powerful. The surname Xianyuan, even a first-class country did not have one. They only existed in the supreme 8 great empires. The 8 great empires were above the first grade great empires. It was rumored that the 8 great empires were floating in the sky, completely separated from the mortals. They were also known as the mysterious Sky City. Chapter 557. Seeing her shocked expression, his lips curled slightly. "So, you also need to become strong. Only by becoming strong can we face the future together. As my woman, you can't be too weak." Fengjiu's mouth moved, but she couldn't say anything for a while. She only felt that it was inconceivable. The person in front of her was actually a member of the royal family of the 8 great empires. It had to be known that a place like that, with that kind of power, let alone a small 9th-rank country like them, even a first-rank country had to look up to them. It's still too early to tell you this. You'll slowly find out about these things in the future. As he spoke, he waved his sleeve and removed the barrier. He picked up his chopsticks and picked up some food for her. "Come, eat more." Fangjiu glanced at him. She picked up her bowl and ate while digesting this information. This was even more shocking than knowing that her grandfather had such a romantic past. The 8 great empires were legendary places that many cultivators couldn't even come into contact with even if they wanted to. However, such a place was sitting in front of her, and he was a member of the royal family. Xianyuan Mose, this name contained too much information. "Master, that seems to be the old master?" Lung Hua's voice suddenly sounded in surprise. Fangjiu looked over. She saw his gaze land on the street. She followed his gaze and her eyes filled with surprise. "It really is grandfather." She put down the bowl in her hand and leaned against the window to look curiously, because at this moment, her grandfather was following a woman in a light green dress in an orderly manner. He even subconsciously fell half a step behind, as if he wanted to distance himself, but the woman reached out and pulled him back to her side. Could that be Aunt Sushi? She blinked her eyes curiously, her eyes filled with excitement. It should be. Xianyuan Mose's gaze also looked at the 2 people on the street. His gaze landed on the 2 people whose appearances didn't match and he said, "That woman is truly sincere towards your grandfather. A woman from a noble family with a good family background and character, but she only fell in love with an old man who was already in his twilight years. If it wasn't true love, what was she after? Yeah, I think so too. Fangju nodded in agreement. Although I know that the two of them are about the same age, Miss Sushi has maintained herself so well. My grandfather must be under a lot of pressure walking with her. He looked at her, and a smile flashed through his deep black eyes. Didn't you want to refine the rejuvenation pill? What? Are you backing down? How is this possible? She raised her voice slightly and said, I'm just thinking that this might be very difficult, especially since I'm not as good at medicine as I am at alchemy. If I want to develop such a pill myself, unless I continue to study alchemy and reach a higher level, it will indeed be quite difficult. I don't remember you saying that last time, he said, somewhat amused. She wasn't embarrassed at all. Instead, her eyes were filled with smiles and brilliance as she said, yes. However, before that, rather than concocting a rejuvenation pill, I might as well help my grandfather advance again. Although profound cultivation is not as good as spirit cultivation, as long as he reaches a certain level of cultivation, he can also become younger. Chapter 558. This method might be difficult for others, but for you, it's very easy. Xinyuan Mo smiled faintly. He looked at the two people on the street and said, it's hard for others to get a bottle of medicine for advancement, even if they spend an astronomical amount of money, but you can easily make it. Thus, it won't be hard for you to help him advance. Fengjiu's gaze also landed on the two people on the street. His eyes were bright and cunning. Compared to this, I think it'll be more interesting if we follow them and watch. Grandpa is shopping with a woman. This kind of scene isn't common. Seeing this, he couldn't help but shake his head. Follow them and watch? You go. I won't go. He didn't have the hobby of following people. Even if he did, he was only interested in her. Okay, then you can stay at the inn and rest well. I'll follow them and watch. She immediately stood up and called Lung Shuang and Lung Hua to leave the inn and head towards the street. At this time, old Master Feng, who was being held by Su Shi, was blushing. He followed beside her and asked softly, Su Shi, where are we going? Didn't you say you'd accompany me to shop and buy some things? Su Shi said, just now, Big Brother said that he'd send you back in 2 days. But you have to remember what you said. Remember to send someone over to send the betrothal gifts. Don't leave without any news. I won't. Old Master Feng waved his hand and said. Not far behind, Fengjiu, who was followed by Lung Shuang and Lung Hua, walked and stopped. Sometimes he would stop to look at the things on the side of the street, but in reality, he was eavesdropping on the conversation in front of him. When she heard Aunt Sushi say to send someone over to send the betrothal gifts, she couldn't help but be speechless. Her grandfather and Aunt Su she had developed so quickly? They were even talking about marriage? She was curious and continued to listen. Then, she heard a piece of news that made her uneasy. You have to remember that I'm already yours. Don't make me wait too long. Old Master Feng's ears turned red when he heard that. He whispered, Sushi, we're on the street. What's wrong with the streets? What I said is the truth. Yes, I know. He wiped his cold sweat and thought to himself that it was fortunate that there was no one he knew. Otherwise, he would not be able to keep his old face. Fengjiu used his fan to cover his mouth that was wide open due to shock. He stared at the little girl selling the fan in front of him, causing the little girl's face to turn red. Young master, do you like this fan? After a long while, Fengjiu came back to his senses. He calmed himself down and smiled at the girl. I like it. I'll sell this fan. He gestured for Long Hua to pay up. She looked at the two people walking further and further away, but didn't follow them. She felt that she had heard two big news in one day, and her heart couldn't take it anymore. At this time, her heart was still beating wildly. She looked at the figure of Aunt Su Shi and couldn't help but admire her. This Aunt Su Shi is not simple. Too amazing. She really had to hand it to her. She actually managed to settle her grandfather so quickly. Looking at her grandfather, when the two of them got married in the future, he would most likely be a henpecked husband. Master, they've gone far away. Lung Hua saw that she was in a daze and whispered to remind her. I won't follow. I won't follow. I need to find a place to rest. She lightly exhaled and patted her chest. Chapter 559. Seeing that it had been some time since they returned to the inn, and there weren't many people at the small tea stall on the corner, she nodded. That's fine. Then she walked over and sat down at a table in the corner. You guys sit too. She gestured with one hand under her chin. I was worried that grandfather and Aunt Sushi wouldn't be able to get together, but I didn't think that these two would act so quickly. It seems that I was worried for nothing. Lung Hua poured a cup of tea for her and said with a smile, if Master knew about this, he would probably be shocked. Hee, of course. He would never have thought that grandfather would be so happy here. AI, grandfather isn't honest. Since he was fine, he didn't even send a letter back. He made us worry for so long. She took a sip of tea and said with a teasing look in her eyes, I wanted to give grandfather a nice surprise, but looking at the situation, AI, forget it. I saw that even his neck turned red when he was by Aunt Sushi's side. Since ancient times, it's hard to accept the kindness of a beauty. This saying is really true. She tapped the table with one hand, thinking that since grandfather's feelings had found a home, then she would have to pay more attention to his father and mother. It would be best if the whole family could be reunited. Only then would they be happy. What's that smell so good? She sniffed the air and said, It smells like chicken. The old man at the small tea stall smiled. Young master's nose is really good. Just now, when a person walked past with something, you could smell that it was chicken. This is a famous delicacy in our 3 cities. It's called fragrant roasted chicken. It's in a shop 2 streets away from here. There are only 100 of them every day, and they're all sold out. Does master want to eat it? I'll go buy it. Long Hua said with a smile and was about to stand up. I'll go, Long Hua said, indicating for him to stay and follow his master. And, if there are, buy 2 back and bring them back to the inn to eat later. Yes, sir, Lung Shuang replied and left after asking for directions. Lung Hua stayed by Fengjiu's side, quietly accompanying her. From time to time, he poured tea for her and watched her ponder over something with one hand on her cheek. However, as time slowly passed, he still did not see his sister return. He could not help but feel a little surprised. He stood up and went to the old man of the small tea stall. Old man, you said that the shop is not far from here? Yes, it's not far. It's just 2 streets away. It's very close. The old man smiled and continued to work. He asked, Sir, would you like some more tea? No need. Lung Hua shook his head and asked, How's the store doing? Do you need to exclude them? The old man waved his hand and said, Usually not, because the fragrant roast chicken is not cheap. Ordinary people won't buy it often. If he sells 100 roast chickens, it will take him until the afternoon. Hearing this, Lung Hua returned to the table and said to Fengjiu, Master, my sister hasn't returned yet. Why don't I go and take a look? The distance of 2 streets should not be so long. Moreover, his master was still waiting here. If he had not been delayed by something, he should have returned long ago. Fengjiu came back to her senses and noticed that nearly an hour had passed, but Long Hua had not returned. She stood up and said, Let's go together. We've been sitting here for a while. Chapter 560. She didn't come? Fengjiu raised an eyebrow, glanced at the waiter, and walked out. Could she have gone back to the inn? Lung Hua said, but she felt uneasy. Fengjiu thought for a moment, then said, That's not likely. I think something happened. But we should go to the inn first and ask Hui Lang if there are any of their people here. Let's go. As she spoke, she walked with him to the inn. At this moment, her face was slightly gloomy. She didn't expect that Long Shuang would disappear when they were just 2 blocks away. Were the people in this place so savage? How dare they kidnap someone in broad daylight? And there was no movement at all. It was clear that Long Shuang had encountered someone much stronger than her. When they returned to the 2nd floor of the inn, Fengjiu saw Hui Lang and Ing Yi guarding the door. She asked, Hui Lang, Are there any people from Yindian and Sanjiang City? Hearing this, Hui Lang was startled, then said, Of course there are. Yindian is spread all over the place, and we have a base in this city. As she spoke, she asked, What's wrong? Did something happen? Why did she come back with a pale face after going out for a while? Lung Shuang is missing. Let me check for you as soon as possible. What would happen if a woman fell into someone else's hands? It was hard to say. Therefore, she had to find her as soon as possible. Otherwise, who knew what would happen? Hearing this, Hui Lang and Ying Yi were slightly surprised. Lung Shuang was missing? Hui Lang immediately asked, Where did she go missing? What happened? I'll send someone to check right away. We stopped at the corner of the street, and then my sister went to buy roast chicken to bring back to the inn. But after waiting for a long time, we still didn't see her. We went to the inn and said my sister didn't go. As Long Hua spoke, he frowned with worry in his eyes. I don't know how they disappeared, but I'm sure they were captured. Xinyuan Mose, who was sitting cross-legged in his room, heard the conversation outside. He walked out and ordered, Send someone to investigate first. We need to know the news before it gets dark. Yes, Hui Lang replied and quickly flew away. He looked at Fengjiu and said, There's no point in worrying. Just wait. Fengjiu was deep in thought. He didn't wait in the inn like he had said. Instead, he said, I'll take Long Hua to the black market to ask. Then, he turned and walked out. Seeing her leave, Xinyuan Mose looked at Ying Yi and ordered, Tell the people who are secretly protecting her to follow her closely. Don't let anything happen to her. Yes. Ying Yi responded and followed him downstairs. There were people secretly protecting Master, and Master also ordered people to secretly protect the ghost doctor. After all, they didn't know when they would be ambushed or assassinated. When they arrived at the black market, Fengjiu directly flashed his token and found the head of the black market. He explained the reason and asked him to help find Long Hua. Seeing the black token, the head of the black market naturally couldn't refuse. Thus, he also sent people to investigate this matter. At this time, the unconscious Long Shuang woke up and found her hands and feet tied, with a piece of Cheyenne cloth in her mouth. She was locked in a room. She couldn't help but be shocked. She struggled to untie the rope, but it was too tight. No matter how she pulled, she couldn't loosen it. Her divine sense sensed that there were two cultivators who were far stronger than her guarding outside. Except for the furnishings in the room, she knew nothing about this place. Chapter 561. Just as she was deep in thought, she heard voices from outside. She immediately lay back on the bed and pretended to be unconscious. Then, she heard the door creak open. This woman is still not awake? The man's voice sounded. It was a man in his 30s with a slightly pale face, slightly swollen eyes, and a turbid light in his eyes. Sir, she's still not awake. I think that palm strike was too strong. The person next to him said, Never mind, it's still early. I'll come back tonight. The man said, but he didn't leave. Instead, he moved closer to the bed and stared at the cold woman in black on the bed. His gaze moved back and forth on her voluptuous and exquisite figure, and he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Not only is this girl not bad-looking, her body is also extremely hot. I can't help myself. Sir, you've always had good taste. There are so many women on the streets. It's her fortune that you've taken a liking to her. The person next to him said flatteringly, Hee, that's right. She's lucky enough to be chosen by this young master, so she can only become this young master's woman. Forget it. There's no need to rush. Later, tell the servants to dress this little beauty up properly when she wakes up. This young master will come over tonight. As he spoke, he laughed softly, his voice containing undisguised excitement. Yes. When Long Shuang heard those words, she resisted the urge to open her eyes and kick them. She waited until the two of them left and the room returned to silence before she opened her eyes. She spat out the piece of cloth in her mouth and stared outside with a cold and eerie gaze. She tried to think of a way. She knew that her master would come looking for her if he found out that she was missing. However, she couldn't just sit here and wait for death. She had to think of a way to save herself. If it was just dealing with those two men, it wouldn't be a problem. However, there were two people with higher cultivation than her guarding outside the room. It would be difficult for her to escape. However, her master had given her many self-defense medicines. As long as the ropes on her hands and feet were untied, she could use them. At the same time, the sky was getting dark, but there was still no news of Lung Shuang. Fengjiu's face became more and more unsightly. Before coming to Shun Inn, she had gone to some underground black markets and brothels to investigate, but there was no news of Lung Shuang. Since it wasn't someone from the underground black market or brothel, it was probably someone who saw Lung Shuang's outstanding appearance and attracted the attention of some perverted people. If that was the case, the longer they waited, the more danger Lung Shuang would be in. Xinyuan Mose looked at her and saw that she was emitting a sinister aura. He comforted her. There will be news soon. The people from the black market are looking, and so are the people from Yindian. It's just Three River City, and there are two forces looking for one person. It shouldn't be difficult. Fengjiu glanced at him but didn't say anything. Her gaze fell on Long Hua, who was standing by the window and looking outside. Lung Shuang was missing, and the person who was most worried about Lung Hua would be. They were blood-related siblings who depended on each other for survival. When something happened to his sister, he couldn't help and could only wait here. One could imagine how he felt. At this moment, Hui Lang quickly walked over. Master, ninth young master, there's news. Chapter 562. She was kidnapped by a man surnamed Zhong. This man is lecherous by nature. He must have taken a liking to Lung Shuang's beauty. I sent someone to rescue her first, then I came back to report. Lung Hua's heart sank when he heard this. He quickly looked at his master. He also wanted to save his sister. Fengjiu glanced at him, then said to Hui Lang, "Take Lung Hua there." "Thank you, master," Lung Hua said, then quickly left with Hui Lang. Fengjiu glanced at Xinyuan Mose, who was beside him, and said, "Wait here. I'll be back soon." He didn't go with her because he knew she could handle it herself. Thus, he waited at the inn for her return. At the same time, in that small courtyard, Lung Shuang, who had changed into a pink and purple dress, looked even more beautiful. Her face was naturally beautiful, and even the black clothes she always wore couldn't hide her beauty, let alone this beautiful pink and purple dress. When the man walked in and saw the tied-up beauty sitting on the bed, his eyes instantly lit up with a lustful light. He was drooling with desire. What a beauty! She's really the best, the best. Lung Shuang looked at the man coldly. Although this man looked like he was indulging in too much debauchery, he was still a golden core cultivator. Her heart couldn't help but sink. No wonder he only tied up her hands and feet. It turned out he didn't think she could escape from his grasp. In an instant, hundreds of thoughts ran through her mind. She lowered her eyes slightly and restrained her cold aura. She said calmly, "Is this how you treat a beauty?" As soon as she said this, the man's eyes lit up. "Of course not. I've always been very gentle with beauties." As he spoke, he came to the bedside and asked tentatively, "Beauty, how about I untie your ropes? You can't run away. If you do, you'll make me angry. The consequences will be very serious." Lung Shuang didn't say anything. He just handed him his tied hands. The man didn't mind. After he untied the rope on her hands, he sat by the bed and stared at her. The more he looked, the more he felt that this beauty was incomparably beautiful. The colder she was, the more interesting she was. Looking at her, the fire in his heart was ignited. He reached out to hook her chin. "Beauty, what's your name?" Lung Shuang dodged to the side and glanced at him coldly. He untied the rope at his feet and said, "Lung Shuang." "Lung Shuang?" As cold as ice, she is indeed as her name suggests. His eyes flashed, and the wolf light in his eyes became even more intense. "I thought you wouldn't say your name. I didn't expect you to tell me your name when I casually asked. Seems like you're quite tactful. I've already said it. I want you to know who killed you." As soon as she finished speaking, she instantly made her move. A swift and fierce attack attacked the man's throat. The speed was so fast that even the man who had been prepared for it couldn't help but be startled. His throat seemed to hurt and a trace of blood seeped out. The man who quickly retreated touched his neck and saw a trace of blood on his finger. He smiled sinisterly and stuck out his tongue to lick the blood. He stared strangely at Long Shuang, who was standing up. Your skills are quite nimble. Your personality is quite spicy and spicy. This young master likes it. As he spoke, he suddenly leaned forward and reached out to attack Long Shuang. Chapter 563. Rip. The sound of clothes being torn came from inside. The two cultivators outside looked at each other and laughed. In the room, the man held the torn piece of cloth from Long Shuang's body and sniffed it deeply. His eyes stared at her exposed snow-white skin with an intoxicated expression. The clothes worn by a beauty are also fragrant. Long Shuang's face was expressionless, but her expression didn't change. She had changed her clothes and didn't even use a weapon. Otherwise, she wouldn't have just cut his neck. She would have taken his life. However, if it was her master, she believed that this person would be dead by now. Her master didn't use a weapon to kill people. It seemed that she had to learn more about killing people with her bare hands from her master. Beauty, let's play again. I don't believe that you can keep this calm. As the man spoke, he attacked Long Shuang again. Long Shuang directly picked up a vase next to her and threw it at him. The vase was dodged by the man and shattered into pieces on the ground. She didn't dodge and faced him head-on. The two of them exchanged a few blows. The clothes on her left shoulder were torn again, and the clothes on her body seemed to be torn off by the man, revealing a large area of snow-white skin. Even her chest was faintly discernible. She seemed to lose her balance and fell towards the broken vase. Her arm scratched the broken vase on the ground and blood seeped out. Look at you. How can you be so careless? Are you hurt? The man frowned as he looked at her snow-white skin that had been cut open and fresh blood oozed out. He could not help but feel his heart ache. However, his gaze was fixed on the beautiful scene before her chest. He swallowed his saliva and his breathing became heavier. Long Shuang looked up and saw him walking over. In the next moment, she jumped up and threw herself at the man. The man laughed lowly and didn't mind. He didn't dodge and even reached out to hold her. But at this moment, his body stiffened and his eyes widened in disbelief. Fresh blood seeped out of his throat. His blood vessels had been cut. Even if the man tried to cover it with his hands, he couldn't stop the blood from gushing out like a fountain. He let go of Long Shuang and staggered back, pointing at her with widened eyes. Long Shuang threw away the blood-stained vase in her hand and looked coldly at the man. She straightened her clothes and said, "Remember, the person who killed you is called Long Shuang." Bang! The man fell to the ground. Even in death, he couldn't close his eyes. He never thought that a mere mystic cultivator that he didn't take seriously could kill a golden core cultivator like him. How would he know that Long Shuang had learned from Fengjiu how to kill people? Without a weapon in hand, she could kill people at any time as long as she had a sharp blade in hand. Long Shuang quickly took the man's Qinkuan bag. She found her own Qinkuan bag and took out the dagger. At this moment, the two golden core cultivators outside noticed that something was wrong and pushed the door open. When they smelled the stench of blood in the room and saw the man lying between the two rooms, the two golden core cultivators narrowed their eyes and immediately attacked Long Shuang. Long Shuang killed the golden core cultivator when he was unprepared. She took advantage of his distraction to kill him. However, the two golden core cultivators attacked her directly. She couldn't withstand their fierce killing intent at all. Bang! Chapter 564. A nascent soul cultivator glanced at the two people inside, then pushed Long Shuang to the side. Stand aside. As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately rushed inside. Two shrill screams could be heard from inside, and the entire courtyard instantly returned to its original calm. Sister. Leng Hua came with Hui Lang. When he saw his sister in tattered clothes in the courtyard, he sucked in a breath of cold air. He hurriedly took off his coat and put it on her. Sister, are you okay? Hui Lang looked her up and down. When he saw that only her clothes were torn and her arm was bleeding a little, he secretly sighed in relief. Fortunately, she was fine. If something had happened, it would have been troublesome. I'm fine. Lung Shuang shook his head. Seeing his worried face, he added, my hand was just cut by a piece of debris. Long Hua quickly bandaged her wound to stop the bleeding, saying, Sister, you don't know. Master and I were worried sick when you went missing. Master asked the Yama Lord's people to investigate, and then he went to the black market. He even took me to several places to look for you. Fortunately, you're fine. Lung Shuang's heart warmed. Just as he was about to speak, he saw a red figure fly over. He immediately called out, Master. When Fengjiu saw her, he first looked her up and down, then nodded. It's good that you're fine. He looked into the room. The gray-robed old man walked out. His gaze fell on Fengjiu. He paused for a moment, then nodded and said, No one survived. Hearing this, Fengjiu glanced at the old man, then said to Lung Shuang and Lung Hua, Let's go back. Hui Lang, burn this courtyard. Yes. The few of them responded and followed behind her. The old man leaped up and disappeared into the night. The flames in the courtyard burned straight up, illuminating half of the night sky. It also alarmed the various forces in Three River City. Lin residents, why is there a fire in the west of the city? Do you know what happened? Patriarch Lin asked the people sitting below. That courtyard belonged to a direct descendant of the Zhong clan, whose behavior was somewhat absurd. It was specifically used to hide women. He must have offended someone and was set on fire. As for who did it, I don't know. There were no survivors. Lin Chengji spoke and told everyone the news he had received. That son of the Zhong family hasn't been like this for the past 1 or 2 years. Even the people of Three River City didn't do anything to him. He must be an outsider, which is why he dared to act so recklessly. Lin Boing said and gestured, It's none of our business, so don't bother about it. Just take care of your own family. Yes, sir. Everyone replied. Since we're done talking, let's talk about something serious. Lin Boing looked at his sons sitting below and said, Your aunt's marriage is finally set. Chapter 565. Don't worry, Father. If Father is not at home, my brothers and I will definitely protect our Lin family. Lin Qingji stood up and said, And Lin Boheng nodded with satisfaction. These children were born from the same family and were as close as brothers. They were not like other families who would fight and kill each other. It was precisely because of these good examples of the elders that their children and grandchildren all had good conduct. In Sanjiang City, the Lin family's reputation was so good. On the other side, after returning to the inn, Fengjiu had Lung Shuang take a bath and rebandage his wound. After ensuring that his wound was fine, he let her rest. Outside, Xinyuan Mose was sitting at the table. When he saw her come out, he poured her a glass of wine. Do you always care so much about the people around you? He asked in a low voice, as if he didn't mean it. Hearing this, Fengjiu glanced at him. If others treat me with sincerity, I will naturally treat them with sincerity. What's so strange about that? Although Lung Shuang and Lung Hua had not been by her side for long, she believed that if she was in any danger, the two of them would definitely disregard their own safety. Rather than saying that the two of them treated her as their master, it was better to say that they treated her as a family member, a pillar of support. She felt that they treated her with sincerity, so naturally she would treat them with sincerity. Hearing this, Xinyuan Mose's deep black eyes flashed. So you're saying that this June did not do well enough? Fengjiu rolled his eyes. This is not the same. How is it not the same? Fengjiu only glanced at him with a meaningful gaze, but did not continue to speak. She only said, I'm going back to rest. I'll go to the Lin family tomorrow morning. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned and went back to her room. Watching her enter the room and even close the door, he unconsciously tapped his finger on the table and asked, How is it not the same? His gaze swept over and looked at Ying Yi, who was standing at the side like an invisible person. Do you know? Being swept by his master's gaze, Ying Yi braced himself and stepped forward, pausing for a moment before saying, This subordinate has a little opinion. If it's wrong, I hope master won't blame me. Xinyuan Mose glanced at him. Speak. Yes. Ying Yi replied, I don't know what ninth young master means by different, but I'm sure that ninth young master treats master differently from others. Oh? His eyes flickered as he said, continue. Others can't get close to ninth young master, but master can. That's the difference. Hearing this, Xinyuan Mose was deep in thought. He was too involved to see clearly, so he didn't feel anything different. But now that Ingi mentioned it, it seemed to be true. Gathering his thoughts, he looked at Ing, who had his head lowered. You're quite experienced in this aspect, but why haven't I seen you getting close to any woman? Hearing this, Ingi couldn't help but stiffen. He didn't know how to answer. Fortunately, his master didn't wait for him to answer. After taking a sip of wine, he got up and went back to his room. Seeing him enter the room, Ingi secretly sighed in relief. He thought to himself, where did that brat Huilang run off to? If he was here, he wouldn't be able to answer this kind of question. The next morning, Fangjiu, dressed in red, walked out of his room sleepily. Seeing Xinyuan Mose already sitting by the window, he yawned and walked over. Seeing this, his gaze landed on the two seated people and secretly sized them up. However, when his gaze landed on the black-robed man, his mind could not help but tremble, and he actually involuntarily shifted his gaze away. He was slightly shocked, but his expression did not change. He walked in and smiled. This humble one is Lin Buoheng, the master of the Lin family. I heard from the housekeeper that there are guests in the house. May I know where these two esteemed guests have come from? As he spoke, he walked to the main seat and sat down. His gaze landed on the red-clothed youth. As he gazed at the young man, he couldn't help but praise in his heart. What a handsome young man that's willful and flamboyant. His unrestrained and unrestrained aura carried an aura of nobility that was formed from the heavens, and it was evil and unrestrained. It was obvious that this person was absolutely extraordinary. Chapter 567. Junior Fengjiu greets Patriarch Lin. She stood up and cupped her hands in greeting. Hearing this, Lin Buoheng, who was sitting at the head of the table, was stunned. He stared at her with wide eyes. Your Fengjiu? Feng Qinga? San Yuan's granddaughter? He looked her up and down, but couldn't tell that this youth was actually a girl. What kind of girl could disguise herself as a man without the slightest shyness of a woman? Who else could be as carefree and unrestrained as she was? If she hadn't said it herself, he wouldn't have believed that the person in front of him was San Yuan's granddaughter. He had people investigate, so he naturally knew that San Yuan's granddaughter was originally called Feng Qinga, but later changed her name to Fengjiu. However, he was bewildered. How did she find out that San Yuan was with him? And she actually came to find him? From the news he heard about San Yuan's granddaughter, he knew she wasn't simple. He didn't expect to see her with his own eyes. And that black-robed man. His gaze fell on the black-robed man again, and he thought to himself, this should be the powerhouse who helped them kill the nascent soul cultivator. Killing a nascent soul cultivator in an instant, this person is indeed dangerous. That's right. Fengjiu smiled. I knew my grandfather was here, so I came to take a look. Hearing this, Lin Buoheng's expression became strange. He carefully pondered over her words. You knew her grandfather was here, so you came to take a look? Just to take a look? Ahem. He coughed dryly and squeezed out what he thought was a kind smile on his dignified face. That, Feng brat? No, Feng girl. Your grandfather and I are sworn brothers. You don't need to call me Patriarch Lin, just call me Grandpa Lin. Yes, Grandpa Lin. Fengjiu smiled, as if she was very easy to talk to, and her demeanor was very obedient. Well, although we kidnapped your grandfather, invited him here, we also paid attention to the situation on your side. We originally wanted to help if you needed help, but we didn't expect you and your father to handle things so beautifully. After I found out, I especially told your grandfather that he has a good granddaughter. Lin Buoheng had an embarrassed expression on his face. He had kidnapped the grandfather, and now the granddaughter had come looking for him. He felt an inexplicable sense of guilt, especially when the black-robed man glanced at him from time to time. That kind of strong sense of oppression made his palms sweat. His heart was on tenterhooks, and he was even nervous. "Grandpa Lin, don't worry, I don't blame you," she smiled and said. "I came here because I found out some things about my grandfather and Aunt Sushi. This time, I came here to see what my grandfather plans to do. If he wants to stay here, I will go back and tell my father so that he won't worry." "Haha, so you know about the two of them?" Lin Buang sighed lightly and said, "Actually, they've already talked it over. Your grandfather said that he wanted to go back first and have people prepare to marry Sushi. If he knows you're here, he'll be very happy." Hearing this, Fengjiu's smile deepened. "Yes, I also think he'll be very surprised to see me." As she spoke, her grandfather's voice came from outside. Sushi froze for a moment, then smiled. "It's good that she's here. I wanted to see her. Didn't you say that you missed her a few days ago? Why did she come back and hide?" This sigh. Just as he was about to speak, his expression tightened. He heard the sound of laughter and jumped up from the stone bench in fright. Chapter 569. Sushi looked at him, anxiously pacing around, and couldn't help but be stunned. She didn't pay attention to him and walked out of the courtyard to greet the people who were walking towards her. When her gaze swept past the group of people, her gaze stopped on Long Shuang, who was dressed in tight black clothes. But after looking for a while, she felt that it wasn't the case. Her gaze turned and landed on the young man in red. She looked him up and down but couldn't tell that he was a girl. So, she could only ask, "Big brother, I heard from Sanyuan that phone girl is here. Who is this?" "Haha, you can't tell either, right? It's her. This girl is dressed as a man. Even I can't tell." Lin Buoheng laughed loudly and asked, "Where's Sanyuan? What do you think is wrong with him? His granddaughter is here and he's hiding? Is there a grandfather like that?" He said he saw his granddaughter and was pacing around anxiously. "I think he's looking for a hole to hide in." Sushi covered her mouth and chuckled. She looked at Fengjiu and said, "You're phone girl, right? You're dressed better than a real man. If you didn't say it, I wouldn't have recognized you." "Aunt Sushi," Fengjiu called out with a smile. "Aunt Sushi is even more beautiful in person than in a painting." Hearing this, Sushi was stunned. "Painting? Yes. I saw a painting of Aunt Sushi at my grandfather's place. That's how I found this place." As she spoke, she winked at her. "My grandfather has that painting of precious Kiki." Hearing this, Sushi pursed her lips and chuckled. "No wonder your grandfather said you're a mischievous spirit. I finally know today." In just a few words, she could feel the friendliness that Fengjiu exuded. She was happy. "I'll go in and find my grandfather first. I came all the way here, but he's not happy to see me. Instead, he's so scared that he's hiding. It really hurts my heart," she said with a smile and walked inside. She saw the old master, who wanted to hide but was too embarrassed to do so, turn around and look at her. Phone girl, why are you here?" With nowhere to hide, old Master Feng could only face it head-on. However, he felt a little embarrassed to let his granddaughter know about this old man's romantic past. "Grandpa, are you unhappy to see me?" The smile on her face disappeared and was replaced by an aggrieved expression. "Or do you only think of Aunt Sushi and don't want Feng, or?" No, I didn't. I really didn't." Old Master Feng waved his hands repeatedly. He was so anxious that he was sweating. Poochie. Seeing him like that, Fengjiu couldn't help but laugh out loud. "All right, Grandpa. I'm just teasing you. I also know about the matter between you and Aunt Sushi. This time, I just wanted to see if you're doing well. What are your plans for the future? I know you're safe and sound, but Father is still worried." Although she told her father that her grandfather would be fine, how could he be at ease without seeing it with his own eyes? Old Master Feng smiled embarrassedly and glanced at everyone. His gaze fell on Fengjiu. "Phone girl, I originally wanted to go back in 2 days. I didn't expect you to come. Hearing this, Fengju smiled and said, Grandpa, are you going back? Or are you going to stay here? I'll go back and ask Father to prepare. Chapter 570. Sushi revealed a gentle smile. Then let's go back. Go back with phone girl. I'll wait for you here. Seeing this, Fengju smiled and said, I just got here. No matter what, I'll have to stay here for a while. If grandfather wants to go back, he'll have to wait a few more days. Old Master Feng looked at her and smiled, but didn't say anything. Sushi smiled and said, Of course. Since you're here, you should stay here for a while. There's no rush to go back. That's right. Since you're here, take a good look at the scenery of Three River City. There are many places to visit in the city. When the time comes, let Sushi take you around. Lin Buheng smiled and looked at them, saying, You guys chat first. I'll go ahead and make arrangements. I'll receive you tonight. Then he told Sushi, Sushi, take good care of Phone Girl and the others. Don't neglect them. Big brother, don't worry. I know. Sushi smiled and nodded. After he left, she looked at Fengjiu and then at Xinyuan Mose, asking, What is this person called? His surname is Ling. He's my friend. Fengjiu smiled. Oh, young Master Ling, she nodded as a greeting and asked, How about I take you to the garden for a walk? No need, Miss Sushi. You and grandfather probably haven't eaten breakfast yet, right? You guys eat first. We'll walk around first. When we came over, we saw the garden and know where it is. She had already seen breakfast on the table and guessed that the two hadn't eaten yet. How can that be? Sushi shook her head and laughed. It's fine, it's fine. Phone Girl isn't an outsider. Old Master Feng said and then said to Fengjiu, Phone Girl, you go. Wait for grandfather to finish eating breakfast, then I'll go find you. His heart was still beating fast. He hadn't recovered from the shock of his sudden appearance. No matter what, he had to calm down first. All right. Sushi was helpless, but she didn't let them go by themselves. Instead, she called for a maid to take them. Grandfather, see you later. Fengjiu winked at him and smiled slyly. Only then did he leave with Xinyuan Mose. After walking around the Lin residence, other than a few servants and guards, they didn't see any juniors of the Lin family. So, Fengjiu asked, There should be a lot of juniors of the Lin family, but why didn't I see anyone? Xinyuan Mose glanced at her and saw that she didn't understand, so he explained to her, As long as the children of noble families are sent to the academy to cultivate and study, they only come back once or twice a year, so it's normal not to see them. Oh? Then why don't some of the clans in our Phoenix dynasty have any? She blinked and asked. A small 9th-rank country has yet to reach that level. Even if you want to send them into the academy, you still don't have the qualifications. However, I remember that you have a competition every 3 years to enter the academy. And it seems so. But I heard that although we participated, most of it had nothing to do with us because we were eliminated. She thought for a while and asked, Qingting Country's 6-star academy is the starting point, right? I seem to have flipped through the information. The best academy below a 6-star country is a 6-star academy. Chapter 571. His voice paused for a moment, then he said, The academy has a master to guide you. It is better than cultivating alone, but you have to remember, don't be an apprentice to any academy. Hearing this, although Fengju felt strange when he said that she didn't want to be an apprentice, but he didn't ask much. It was not easy for her to be an apprentice. She had high standards, and ordinary people simply couldn't enter her eyes. Well, I know, she responded, thinking about entering the academy and being a student again. She suddenly had a sense of excitement. However, after a pause, she looked a bit strange and asked, Do you think it is better for me to be a student or a mentor? Being a mentor, it would definitely be in the field of pharmacy. Moreover, with her level of pharmacy, it was more than enough for her to be a mentor in a 6-star academy. He looked at her deeply and said in a low voice, The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. In this world, there are too many strong people, far from what people can understand. When you enter a 6-star academy, It would be best for you to hide your aura. It would be best for you not to let people know about your identity. Seeing him speak so solemnly, and his words were filled with teaching, Fengjiu put away his playful smile, and with a serious face, he nodded. Well, I know, you can rest assured. Although my style of doing things is casual, and occasionally a little narcissistic, but I still know this point. What can be done? What can't be done? She had an idea in her heart. About half an hour later, old Master Feng came to find them, and knew that Xinyuan Mose was the strong person who helped their Feng clan, and repeatedly bowed to thank him. However, for Xinyuan Mose, who was thinking about how to please the Feng clan, he didn't dare to accept his bow. He took Hui Lang and Yingyi out of the door, saying that he had something to deal with and would come back later, so he quickly left old Master Feng's line of sight, so that he couldn't find him to bow. Grandfather, you don't have to be like this. Just treat him as someone of the same generation as me. He wouldn't dare to accept your bow, Fengjiu said with a smile, and helped him to sit down in the pavilion. Does he like you? I saw the way he looked at you was not right. Although the old man was old, his eyes were very sharp, and he could see that the two were unusual. Fengjiu's mouth twitched and helplessly looked at him. Grandfather, don't talk about me. Let's talk about Aunt Sushi. When Master Feng heard this, he immediately became shy. His old face turned red and he said with embarrassment, That Feng girl. This. Grandpa, you don't have to be embarrassed. The age difference between the two of you isn't that big. It's just that Aunt Sushi's beauty is at her peak. Let me tell you, I already know about your relationship. Aunt Sushi is a rare woman. Grandpa, don't let her down. He's as to Fxi's, I to say. By Fxi's master, S. My idea is good, right? She looked at him with a smile. With her grandfather's cultivation talent and her medicine, it shouldn't be difficult for him to become a martial venerable. Hearing this, old Master Feng was grateful. His granddaughter had already planned for him. What else could he say? Chapter 572. Hearing this, Fengjiu was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, Seeing that grandfather has such a good confidant like Aunt Sushi, I am very happy for grandfather. After grandfather and Aunt Sushi get married, I won't stay in the Phoenix dynasty. Won't stay there? Then where do you want to go? The old man was startled and quickly asked. She smiled and said, I want to go to the academy to cultivate. I will go to the 6-star academy first. I will go there too. Hearing that she was going to the academy, old Master Feng was relieved. That's good. There are teachers there to look after you. We can rest assured. The grandfather and grandson chatted here until Lin Buang prepared a banquet for them in the evening. Fengjiu and Xinyuan Mose went together. They didn't stay in Three River City for long. After a few days of sightseeing, they prepared to leave. Lin Buang, Su Shi and Lin Qingji sent them out of the city. When they saw the luxurious airship, their eyes flashed with surprise. They didn't expect Fengjiu to have such a luxurious airship. One must know, such a luxurious airship, even their family's airship couldn't compare. This kind of airship couldn't be bought with money. Perhaps this wasn't Fengjiu's, but the black-robed man's. Big brother, Su Shi, Chengji, you can go back. No need to send us off. Old Master Feng said. His eyes fell on Su Shi and said, Su Shi, I won't let you wait for too long. Su Shi showed a gentle smile and nodded. Be careful on the road. I will wait for you to come back. Uncle Feng, everyone, take care. Lin Chengji smiled and cupped his hands. Hee, you see, I said I would send you back, but now you say I don't need to. Lin Buang shook his head and said, Since you have Feng Girl and young Master Ling to accompany you on the road, then I won't send you off. We will wait here for your letter. And old Master Feng nodded, looked at Su Shi, and cupped his hands to Lin Buang and Lin Buang. I hope Big Brother and Chengji will take care of Su Shi when I return. I will thank you properly. Uncle Feng, don't worry. We will take good care of Auntie. Lin Qingji said with a smile. Su Shi only smiled. Her face couldn't hide the sweetness, but her heart was filled with reluctance. If it weren't for the fact that she couldn't, she really wanted to go with him to the Phoenix dynasty. Go. If you keep talking, it's going to be dark soon. Lin Boheng joked and gestured for them to get on the ship. Grandpa Lin, Uncle Lin, Aunt Su Shi, we will meet again soon, Fengju said with a smile. He glanced at them and then turned to board the spaceship. Even though old Master Feng was reluctant to leave, he still boarded the spaceship. When the spaceship took off, he waved at them, indicating that they should go back. Lin Boheng looked at his sister and said, Sushi, let's go back. Lin Qingji also smiled. That's right, Aunt. It won't be long before Uncle Feng comes to fetch you. Chapter 574. Old Man Feng, you're finally back. Old Master Gung also laughed heartily and looked at him from head to toe. Seeing that he was fine and full of energy, Old Master Gung could not help but ask in surprise, where have you been all this time? You don't seem to have suffered much, right? Why do I feel that you're even more energetic than me? When Elder Feng heard this, he didn't know how to reply. He couldn't tell his old friend that he was going to get married. He really felt too embarrassed to do so. Seeing her grandfather smiling, Fengjiu could not help but smile. Grandpa Gung. Hee, Feng family's girl. Where did you find your grandpa? He looks weird. He even looks embarrassed when I ask him questions, Old Master Gung said, feeling curious. He looked at Old Master Feng from time to time. Fengjiu smiled slyly and said mysteriously, my grandfather is in high spirits because of a happy occasion. Grandpa Gung, keep this a secret for now. However, the news will come out soon. When the time comes, I'm sure you'll be shocked. She smiled. Old Master Gung was startled and then laughed. Good. This old man will wait and see what kind of happy occasion it is. He paused and said, you just came back, so I won't delay you from going back to the palace. We'll talk again when there's time. Okay, then we'll go back first. In 2 days, this old man will go to the Gung family to drink with you, Old Master Feng said and patted him on the shoulder. Then, he walked forward with his granddaughter. On the way, many people from the family came up to congratulate him. He returned their greetings along the way and let everyone see that he had returned safely. When they arrived at the palace gate and saw the people waiting at the gate, Old Master Feng felt emotional for no reason. He never expected that one day, a descendant of the Feng family would replace the Morong family and ascend to the throne. He also did not expect that everything would be different when he came back. Father! Feng Xiao came up to greet him. Seeing that he came back safely, he was finally relieved. He said happily and excitedly, it's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. Father, I told you that Grandpa would be fine, right? Fengjiu chuckled and looked at her father with a mysterious smile. Moreover, our family is about to have a happy occasion. Feng Xiao was startled. Happy occasion? Just as he was puzzled and wanted to ask what the happy occasion was, he heard Luo Yu and the others who came to greet him. Happily. Subordinate to greet you, master. Get up. Fengjiu waved her hand and motioned for them to get up. Master, you're finally back. Luo Yu looked at her and said, when you weren't here, we kept it in mind and hoped that Master would come back soon. Come back soon to deal with you guys? Fengjiu chuckled and glanced at them. Hearing this, everyone laughed, and a joyous atmosphere filled the air. Okay, let's go to the palace first. How can we talk here? Feng Xiao said and came to Old Master Gung's side. Father, a lot of things happened while you were away. I don't know if Xiaoju has told you. If not, I'll tell you later. Chapter 575. The father and son walked and chatted as they walked into the palace. Fengjiu was surrounded by Luo Yu and the others. Luo Yu, in particular, kept asking them if they had encountered anything interesting. Fengjiu didn't say much, and Long Shuang didn't like to talk. In the end, he pestered Long Hua and asked Long Hua to tell them about what had happened outside. Fengjiu didn't return to the palace to rest. Instead, She went directly to her father and grandfather to discuss the marriage between her grandfather and Aunt Sushi. In the main hall, her father and grandfather were talking. When they saw her enter, they waved for her to come forward. Xiaojiu, you said you were going to have a wedding. What is it? Feng Xiao asked with a smile as he looked at his daughter. Fengjiu looked at her grandfather in surprise. Grandfather, you haven't told me yet? Hee, I was waiting for you to come. Old Master Feng smiled awkwardly and adjusted his expression. He put away the smile on his face and looked at Feng Xiao seriously. His serious and solemn expression made Feng Xiao's heart skip a beat. He held his breath and waited for him to speak. I'm going to get married. Have someone look through the almanac and see if there are any good days. Then quickly prepare for the wedding. When she heard her father say that he was going to get married with a straight face, Feng Xiao was stunned. She thought she heard wrong and asked, Father, what did you just say? Who is getting married? Ahem. Old Master Feng coughed and glared. Your father. I'm going to marry again. Do you understand now? What? You're going to marry again? Feng Xiao was stunned and looked at him in astonishment. Father, this is the joyous occasion that our family is going to hold. Fengjiu pursed her lips and smiled. Seeing her father's stunned and dumbfounded expression, she felt very happy. Look, she wasn't the only one who had such a reaction. After a long while, Feng Xiao recovered from the old man's stare. However, he looked at him with a strange expression and asked, Father, who wants to marry you? His father was already quite old. Although this age wasn't considered old in the cultivation world, the old man's appearance was already old. Who would want to marry an old man? Moreover, the old man had been missing for so long, and when he came back, he said that he was going to get married. Anyone would be shocked. Hearing this, the old man blushed and glared at him. He swung his sleeves and stood up. Hurry up and do this for this old man. Don't ask so many questions. This old man is tired. I'm going to rest first. Seeing the old man fling his sleeves and leave in anger, the father and daughter in the main hall were stunned for a moment before they laughed. Xiaojiu, what's going on? Why did the old man say that he was getting married the moment he came back? Where was this woman from? Is she reliable? Feng Xiao looked at his daughter and asked. In fact, he was afraid that the old man couldn't see through people. Father, don't worry. This is absolutely reliable. Let me tell you. It's like this. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.